You're listening to the JD Rucker Show. Let's begin. I know that I said long ago, well, not too long ago, but pretty long ago, that I wanted this show to be more focused on conspiracies, on faith, on things that were outside of politics. But by golly, politics have finally been good. And I guess, in a way, I am celebrating. Call it, I don't know, therapy. Not that I need therapy. I mean, I probably do need therapy, but I don't need like therapy for depression or anything like that. But it just feels good to talk about politics in at least the early stages of the age of Trump. Now, I do think there are going to be some hard times coming in the near future. Maybe not too near, Lord willing, and perhaps not at all. Maybe it's just going to keep going. Maybe we're just going to keep winning. That's the hope. That's the push. That's what we want. I mean, is it not? Is that not what we want? We want we keep getting these wins, right? So let's just keep the wins going. There's no reason why we shouldn't, except that we know that the powers that be, the powers and principalities, the globalist elite cabal and their minions in the deep state, the uniparty swamp, the military-industrial complex, the censorship industrial complex, the intelligence industrial complex, all the various industrial complexes, legacy media, of course, they're all trying very hard to end this party, to stop the winning and to make America lose again, because that's what we did. And oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes for 4 years under the what I like to call Obama's third term, the Obama Biden-Harris regime, we just kept losing. We lost to the border. We were losing in foreign affairs. We were losing with our money, our finances. And now, all of a sudden, President Trump comes in, and even though I had extraordinarily high expectations, I mean very high, I really thought he was going to be fantastic. I had no idea. Okay, I really didn't. I had no idea that we were going to see this amount. I don't know. I think I was expecting this level, this degree of winning, but I didn't think we were going to just have it. I mean, it's like a floodgate, right? It's like a fire hose. We're trying to drink from a fire hose because there's so much of it. I mean, yes, I don't think I even mentioned that Tulsi Gabbard was confirmed yesterday. Odd. It's pretty big news, especially since I didn't think it was going to happen. I really thought that she was going to be the one who was going to get stopped. If any of the nominees were going to get stopped, I thought it was going to be her. Now my concern points to Kash Patel. It's like, well, they didn't stop her. They didn't stop Tulsi. They tried to, but they couldn't stop Pete Hegseth. And now, we'll see what happens with Kash Patel. I thought that he was a shoo-in at one point, and then I thought, maybe he's going to reveal too much. Maybe they have so much to hide. And that's really what it comes down to. At the end of the day, it comes down to what do they have to hide and what degree are they willing to go to do the hiding. Now, the answer to the second question is to any degree that they are capable of going. They will do the most that they could possibly do. They will do anything. I mean, they will go to the extremes to keep their secrets, keep their evils, keep their sins hidden, to keep their scams going, their cons. Tentative Infidel in the chat says the best thing that could happen is the elimination of the IRS, which is the collection arm of the central bank. Amen. Amen to that. Yes. And the IRS got a visit earlier today. They got the dreaded knock on the door. Knock, knock, knock. Doge here. We'd like to see your books. I mean, talk about turning the tables. This is an organization that has weaponized the knock on the figurative door. They are the ones that they do the record checking. They're the ones that are supposed to find what your financial sins are, and then now all of a sudden, Doge is coming along. President Trump's talking about doing something perhaps very different with the IRS. And yes, I would love to see that. Talk about a win. I mean, the IRS is, in my humble opinion, an extra constitutional organization within the government. It should not exist. And anything that we can do to rein them in, that's good. To really truly just hurt them, subvert them, not hurt them like physically. I'm saying hurt the organization, weaken it greatly. That would be amazing. And if it's even possible for us to be able to eliminate it altogether, oh my gosh, that would be heavenly. And here's the thing. I mean, what's not possible today? I don't know if there's really any limits. And at the end of the day, that's what this first 3 weeks, 4 weeks of the Trump administration, it has been to demonstrate, I think, to us and to our opposition and to the rest of the world that there are no limits to the possibilities. The sky is the limit with this Trump administration. And this is why I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I think that this demonstrates in many, many ways. This demonstrates the sovereignty of God. And people say, well, are you going to go down the road that God is protecting Trump? Well, yes, but that's not the biggest reason. Okay, yes, I do think that there was intervention from a higher power that kept President Trump alive. But the bigger reason, far bigger reason, that I am very, very aware of God's sovereignty, his control over the situation, is the fact that if you go back to 2020, we'll say early 2021, I would say all of Trump's supporters, all of us, I mean, 100%, maybe we'll say, just for the sake of not being absolute, we'll say 99.9% of Trump supporters, if we had our way, if we could wave a magic wand, if we had the power and the resources to be able to expose the massive, widespread voter fraud that took place during the 2020 election, the insane levels that they had to go in order to get to 81 million votes for Joe Biden, the water mains breaking mysteriously, and all these crazy things happening, coincidentally, only in swing districts with the most corrupt election officials possible, okay? Only in, Fulton County, only in Detroit, Maricopa County, Philadelphia, parts of Pennsylvania. Strange that the only places where there were crazy things happening on election night and after election night just happened to be the places where Trump won by the smallest possible margins. And then they, of course, had the whoop whoop. We all saw that. I think that all of us, 99.9% of us, if we had the opportunity back in early 2021, late 2020, early 2021, after the election, before the inauguration, we'll say before January 6th. So between November 6th and January 6th, 2020 to 2021, 99.9% of us, if we could wave a magic wand, we would have said, yes, we want this taken to court. We want all the massive widespread voter fraud to be exposed. We want all those people that did it. We want them to go to jail. And we want President Trump to be rightly reelected, for him for the world to acknowledge that he did win this election and that they tried to cheat. 99.9% of us would have wanted that to happen. And we would have thought, and if it did happen, we would have been like, oh my gosh, this is so great. But guess what? If that had happened, we would have 4 more years of Mike Pence instead of JD Vance. We would have had probably 4 more years of Christopher Wray instead of, Lord willing, Kash Patel. We would have had Bill Barr instead of Pam Bondi. We wouldn't have had Pete Hegseth or Robert F. Kennedy Jr. or any of Trump's current administration, which is exponentially better than the one he started with, and still, even though he improved it over time, still far better than the one he ended with. But more importantly, we wouldn't have gotten this version of Trump. We would have had a version of Trump that didn't get angry. He got angry. He learned so many lessons as a result of the 2020 steal, as a result of the 4 years of him still being abused, of the lawfare against him, the assassination attempts. President Trump today is a far greater president, but also, I think, a greater man than he was from 2017 to 2021. I think that this version of Trump is better, and I think that this version of Trump is far better than we would have gotten if he had been reelected in 2021 through 2025. We suffered through Joe Biden. That sucks. We suffered a lot. We're continuing to suffer as a result, and we will continue to suffer. I mean, this isn't as much as Trump's doing. This is not an easy fix. This isn't even a hard fix. This is a nearly impossible fix, but we're going to try to fix it. We're going to try to fix as much of it as we can. But again, I go back to my original premise. Had we gotten our way, we would have gotten a lesser version of Trump, a far lesser version of the cabinet. And as of today, chances are, I mean, what was Mike Pence going to win? DeSantis? Who's going to win in 2024 if Trump was reelected in 2020 and served both terms? I mean, we would probably have Governor Gavin Newsom or President Gavin Newsom today, or President Michelle Obama, or President Gretchen Whitmer, or whatever. Whoever would have stepped up at the time. So, God's will was done, not ours. And I think what we've seen, at least these first 3 weeks, I think it's crystal clear that we need to praise God constantly for not doing what we wanted him to do. We would have wanted him to reverse the steal in 2020. And we would have been wrong. We needed to go through 4 years of Joe Biden. America needed to go through 4 years of Joe Biden. There was a poll that came out just the other day, I think yesterday as a matter of fact, showed that 42% of black male voters, I should say, support Trump. 42%. That's unheard of. We've had Republican presidents, quote unquote, popular Republican presidents who have been in single digits as far as support from black male voters. And Trump's at 42%. I would imagine that, assuming that the winning continues, that number will jump to over 50% before the end of this year. And that is an impossibility that could not happen, except it is. It's happening. If it wasn't happening, and you'd asked me a year ago if it could happen, I would have said zero chance. Because we've seen what's happened with Democrats over the decades. They've become more and more unhinged. They've become far easier to control. I would go down the road, and I probably will someday in a future show, go down the road of explaining how I think that there's something literally in the water. I don't know if it's the fluoride, there's something, some sort of mind control or mind weakening or something is happening, specifically with leftists. Now, maybe it's happening with all of us. Maybe it's in the food supply, maybe it's in the air, maybe it's in the 5G, maybe it's in the jabs, maybe it's in whatever. I don't know. I think something has made it to where vast majority of Americans have become weaker-minded, weaker-willed, easier to mold. That's why we still have so much lunacy. That's why we can take an idea. They, and I say we, they, the powers that be, can take an idea and make it stick even if it shouldn't stick. For the left has always prided themselves, for decades they've prided themselves about being the thinkers, the people of science. We believe in science. But now all of a sudden it's that we believe in science except for biology, which we're redefining that now. Get back to us later. Don't ask me what a woman is. Just, what am I, a biologist? Okay, so I am a biologist, but don't ask me what a woman is. We haven't figured that out yet. They're still figuring that out. I mean, call me crazy, but I think there is something that's making the left, for sure, probably many on the right, we just don't see it. Something is making us weak-willed, weak-minded, easily manipulated, and controllable. Sheep, docile. You might say, oh, but Antifa is not docile. You see these. No, they are. Just because docile does not necessarily mean that they're passive in their actions. Docile means they're passive in their resistance to control. Okay, you could take somebody who's docile and control them, convince them to go commit violent murder. That doesn't mean that they're, it's docile is probably the wrong word because it can be too confusing. They've just become malleable. And when I say they, it could be us. There's that old question of, if I'm crazy, would I know that I was crazy? Or am I too crazy to realize that I'm crazy? I don't know. That's a question for philosophers. Let's look at some normie headlines. I started a trend. Well, it's a trend now because I've done it now. This will be the second day in a row that I've done it. So that makes it a trend. I've always said you got to know what your opposition knows. You got to know what they're being taught. You have to know what they're being showed, how they're being indoctrinated, how they're being brainwashed. So I turned to Google News, and we're going to do this every day until it just gets too annoying. Because I want to see, let's refresh it. I want to see what the headlines are, what the stories are, what the narrative is that's being pushed out to people who are still going to things like Google News or Reuters or the New York Times or CNBC or CNN or anything like that. So the top headline is from Reuters. Trump says U.S. to increase military sales to India, eventually providing F-35 jets. There we go. And we are going to talk about Modi, the meeting with Trump. I've got that as one of the first stories coming up. But no, it doesn't look like much spin there. What about next? Donald Trump unveils reciprocal tariff plan to trade partners. I don't see a spin there. That's from Financial Times. No big deal. Trump orders up a plan for more tariffs even as inflation heats up. There's the spin from CNN. More tariffs and associating that with inflation heating up. And it's funny how, CPI, do I want to go down that road? CPI is a number that is, it's bogus, basically. And they knew it was bogus before. It's manipulatable, and I'm not going to go down that road. Well, yeah, I could talk about that for a long time, and everybody would leave because it's the most boring thing possible. So, point is that they're trying to sit here and equate tariffs with inflation and make the connection there. That's funny. Sacramento State professor explains common misconceptions about tariffs. Okay, that's probably nothing. Let's see. We're on a trend, but I'm already boring myself, so maybe this isn't a good idea. Next story, Trump from Politico. Trump administration fires thousands of federal workers. Yes! We will talk about that one. LA Times reports atmospheric river storm slams into LA County, bringing mudslides and flooding and trapping cars. That's true. It's funny. We are, for those who don't know, I met my wife. We started our family all those decades ago in Oklahoma. So anytime it rains out here in Southern California, my wife opens up the doors and the windows and hangs out. She loves the rain. She loves the wind. She loves the rain, and she misses it, and we just don't get it enough. And unfortunately, it's being turned into a bad thing. It is good, but there are risks. There's always risks, especially after fires. For those who didn't know, and I didn't know, maybe everybody knew this, but I didn't know until I came out to California. Anytime there's a fire, obviously that weakens the root structure of trees, which help to prevent mudslides, okay, debris flows, stuff like that. So with this massive storm that's now over me as we speak, there are risks involved. But I'm not in LA County, so I'm not experiencing the type of risks that they are. All right, so normies aren't getting too darn indoctrinated, at least not by that stuff. Let's see what the real people, such as you, the real thinkers, are looking at. We go to the LibertyDaily.com and look at some of the headlines. Secretary of State Marco Rubio's plane diverted back to D.C. over mechanical issues. Now, I got sent that story by Matthew Burke, the owner of the Liberty Daily. For those who don't know, I'm the editor. He's the owner. He buys classic cars. I sit here and slave in my computer all day because I love it, and I would do it even if I took over the Liberty Daily, if I ever bought it from Matthew, I would still work on it. I couldn't stop because I do love what I do with that. But he had sent me that story about Marco Rubio, and he's like, I'm pretty sure this is the deep state. They're doing something. They're trying to divert him. They're doing something. He could be right. RFK Jr. said a lot of people, I'm not going to try to do an RFK Jr. impersonation. A lot of people told me I couldn't trust President Trump, but we did it on a handshake, and he's kept his word on everything. Amen to that. There's a video, and am I going to play that one? No, I'm not going to play with that one. It's just a video of RFK getting his. I'm not big on ceremonies. I don't think I've seen one swearing in ceremony this election cycle. Okay, yeah, it's great. It's novelty. Next, AG Bondi orders death row prisoner back to Oklahoma for execution. Things are changing. Federal judge extends pause on Trump's move to put thousands of USAID workers on leave. And that is very, very unfortunate. But it is a pause. I think we're going to talk about it. Just in case we don't, since we're on the topic, I'll go deeper into it if I do have that as one of my stories today. But this happens to be a Trump judge. Okay, so this is somebody that Trump, we'll just call it what it is. This is somebody that McConnell had Trump confirm or appoint, and then they confirmed him. It sounds worse than it really is. The pause is for basically an extra week. Okay, it was supposed to end tomorrow. He extended it until a week from tomorrow. Now, his rationale there is not that he thinks that it should be stopped, basically, that President Trump can't fire these employees with USAID. That's not what he's thinking. He's basically saying that, hey, a lot of you can sue. That's it. I mean, that's really, I'm not sure why he's doing this, why he's pausing the firings. Well, actually, I do know. It's because he says it needs to be a little bit more systematic. We need to make sure that we have, people who might be in danger. If they just get fired or put on administrative leave, technically, then, are they going to be in danger? Are they going to be kicked out of their homes and they're living in Zimbabwe or whatever, and then all of a sudden they're, hunted? Or it sounds like it's opposition, but in reality, it's mild opposition. It's basically saying, hey, yeah, he can put you on an administrative leave. I'm going to hold it off for one more week. I would suggest that some of you go ahead and start filing lawsuits. That's pretty much what he's saying. And it's still bad, but it's not as bad as, a lot of these guys, a lot of these activist judges that are trying to, injunction this, restraining order that. They're trying to truly and permanently subvert President Trump's agenda, bit by bit, piece by piece, move by move. And as I've said for all week, I've been trying to tell people, in the end, nearly all of it's going to come back positive for us. It's just going to take time. And perhaps more importantly, I think we need to understand that none of this is unexpected. President Trump's team knew all of these moves were going to happen before he was even inaugurated. They knew what the plan was, and they knew that this is how Democrats and leftists and globalists were going to try to stop it or slow it down in most cases. None of this would happen. We would be tiptoeing through this, even the second administration, if they weren't prepared. They knew it was coming. And I had suggested about 2 weeks ago, a couple weeks ago, that one of the reasons that they're doing it the way they're doing it, with this, again, fire hose of executive orders, is just like blitzkrieg, okay, shock and awe of actions in the first couple of weeks. The reason that they did it like that, I think, is because they wanted to basically weaken. What's the word I'm looking for? To spread thin. I forgot the word I'm looking for, but you get the idea. They basically say, hey, okay, if you guys are going to hit us with lawsuits and lawfare and try to stop this, and this, guess what? We're going to throw it all out at you at once. We're just going to bombard you with this, spread you thin, because there's only a certain number of organizations out there that can actually fight this. Okay, it's not infinite. It takes money, and it takes time, it takes effort, and it takes organization to be able to go out and find activist judges, and to file the right paperwork, and to file the right motions, and to file the right lawsuits. And I think that they did it so the way that they're doing it in an effort to spread them out too thin, and it's working. And again, I would argue that his team knew it was coming. They're prepared for it. They know what they can do, and they're going to take it as far as they can. There have been some curveballs they weren't expecting, okay? But for the most part, they knew the overall plan, and they're going to address it. So somebody had said, I said, don't worry. I did this in my column or one of my shows the other day. I said, don't worry. It's all going to work out. We're going to win. They're not going to win. I didn't say we're going to win. I said they're not going to win. They being the Democrats, the globalists, the activist judges. And somebody came out there and said, no, they are winning. They're slowing this down. And I get it. I understand the frustration. But just because they're slowing it down doesn't mean that it's not going to work out. And perhaps more importantly, doesn't mean that doesn't mean that they're winning. Think of it like this. If I'm going to use a sports analogy here. Let's say, in football, right? The intention, if you're on offense, the intention is to get to the end zone, right? Okay. So to get to the end zone, you put together what's called a drive, if you're not familiar with football. And with a drive, you run plays. And some plays will get you 3 yards, 8 yards, 15 yards. Some plays will get you negative yards if the defense gets you. Sometimes you'll get all of it at once. You can get a big breakaway play and one play in the end zone. The Trump team, the Trump administration knew that they were going to have to mount a drive. They weren't thinking, okay, we're going to put out the executive orders, and every single executive order is going to be an 83-yard run or an 83-yard Hail Mary. And they're all going to be successful, and they're all going to get to the end. No, they knew that a lot of them are going to get stopped at the line of scrimmage. A lot of them are going to get stopped in the secondary. But they still mount the drive. They still start the process to get us closer. Just because we didn't win, boom, like that on every single executive order, just because they're opposing some of them, they're slowing some of it down, doesn't mean that they're not worthwhile. They're very worthwhile. We need them. We need them to keep going. So don't tell me, they've won, because they've slowed it down. some of these challenges that we've had that Trump is now addressing, a lot of them we've had for decades. So don't tell me, it's no good. It's been here for decades, but if we don't get it on that first try, that first executive order, if they push back at all, then they won. Just because we're not going to see success, it's going to take weeks or months to see success. We might as well not even do it. That sort of defeatist attitude, it really chaps my khakis. We'll just say that. So anyway, back to this article or this story. No, not a huge deal. It is temporary. It only extends it for a week. And yeah. All right, leftists flip out as Doge enters IRS headquarters. I mentioned that one. Soros-backed DA in the hot seat after man on bond goes on a cop shooting spree. I'm not going to go into that story, but I would recommend reading it if you need to get angry, and we should be getting angry over certain things, such as the continued success of many Soros-backed district attorneys. That's a real thing. And unfortunately, that is going to take more than weeks or months to fix. That's going to take a long, long time. It's going to take more than one winning drive. We're going to have to play all 4 quarters to go after that, because it's not something we can just do from D.C., from the White House, or from Congress. We have to go district by district by district by district. It's going to be tough. But to put in perspective, even in Texas, Texas is a red state. Yeah, but Soros has made his mark there. I've long said that the George Soros and now Alex Soros, the smartest thing they've done is to focus on district attorneys and attorneys general. That's their plan, and it's working. That is one area where we are failing. And I mean, we've done our best to say, Soros-backed DAs. That doesn't resonate properly, not with the electorate. If it did, then we wouldn't have nearly as large of a problem. It hasn't worked yet. And we have to ask ourselves why. We have to come up with a better strategy. And a different strategy, by the way. It's not just a better strategy. It's a completely different strategy from what it takes to win congressional seats, what it takes to win a presidency, what it takes to win governorships, even mayor's races. Mayoral races have a certain strategy. Gubernatorial races have a certain strategy. We say Congress and Senate, they're so similar, except the elections for Congress versus the elections for U.S. Senate, totally different strategies because of obvious reasons. So, district attorneys, we haven't figured that one out. And even in Texas, as Ken Paxton notes, even in Texas, they're having major problems.
Every big construction site in this country has prostitution run by the cartels, often of children. I don't see anyone doing anything about it. And it makes you wonder, like Mexico is completely, utterly corrupt because of cartel money. Politicians, judges, journalists, all on the payroll. You see this in other Latin American countries. I mean, our politicians are not that expensive. Like, you could do that in a state like Texas, right? Or California.
Yeah, well, here's one of the biggest problems we have. We have it in Texas. We have it in other parts of the country. George Soros has figured this out. He's gone in and elected DAs in Democratic counties. Austin, Houston, Dallas, San Antonio. So 70% of our population controlled by Soros DAs. He went in and knocked off Democratic DAs because we can't get elected Republicans in those areas. So he went in and knocked off DAs who were actually prosecuting and replaced them with Soros DAs. Now, our legislature could fix that. They haven't. They could come in and say, AG, you have concurrent jurisdiction to go after these crimes. But because they haven't done that, crime is proliferating in all of our cities. Financial crimes, other types of crimes, because they will not prosecute crimes. And so the cartels have an open invitation. So do other cartels from other countries. So if you go out to our financial crime unit in Tyler, they will tell you about all these crime groups coming in from other countries because they know they can get away with it. And our legislature so far has not fixed that.
Why? Okay, so then the question of motive arises. Like, why wouldn't you want to stop crime in your state?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I find that DAs they have more power in Texas than any elected official I've ever seen, because they're not accountable to anybody. If they commit a crime, no one can prosecute them. If it's a state crime, they'd have to prosecute themselves. And they can allow any crimes in their area. And they can go after, in Texas, it is so easy to get an indictment. You just walk in, you can tell the grand jury anything you want to. You can lie. Once you have the indictment, you've got it. There's no getting out of it. And so I think a lot of our politicians are afraid of their DAs, even if they're liberal Democrats. But if we don't get control of this in our state and in other states, and give somebody like the Attorney General, I'm not going to be there forever, give that authority so that there's another way to prosecute when the Soros DAs, and Soros has figured it out, but the Republicans have not.
I mean, it's so obvious just in your, 45-second explanation. It makes sense. So how is it that they haven't figured it out, or do they have a higher loyalty?
They're afraid of the DAs. They're afraid the DAs come in and lobby, and everybody's afraid of their own DA, that they'll get indicted if they do it. There's just that power, because to get an indictment in Texas, you don't have to have, there's no recording of it. It's only one side of the story. You can, and if they lie and they get the indictment, there's no remedy. There's no consequence to the DA, and there's no remedy for the victim of that lie. You are going to trial. You can even, if somehow you could find out what happened in that secret grand jury proceeding, which I have before, it doesn't matter. You can go to judge and say they lied. You still are indicted, and you're still at risk of going to prison.
You have to tell your kids you've been indicted.
And you might be in prison. You might be in front of a jury that doesn't know the truth, and you go to jail, or you're in a Democratic county, you might go to jail on something that they made up.
So you really think, I mean, I'm sorry to be so naive, but I grew up in this country and we didn't have things like this that I was aware of in 1985. But you think that members of the Texas legislature are afraid they'll be indicted if they push back against the DAs?
I think there is a fear, and there is this lobby effort. These DAs have so much power. Otherwise, why would they allow Soros to control the major cities? And it's obvious that they're not prosecuting crimes. They won't even prosecute shoplifting for, like, if you have free ride, if you want to, as long as you take $750 a day in Dallas County, whatever the number is, and you go to different stores, you can do that every day. And the DA there said, we will not prosecute you.
But why would you want that unless you were trying to destroy a civilization?
Soros, that's exactly what he wants to do.
Exactly. It's exactly what they want to do. And they're succeeding in many ways. And I don't have an answer other than that we need to vote them out. And that's the easy cop-out answer. What else can we do? Serious question. I mean, I'm not asking that rhetorically. What else can we do other than come up with a winning strategy, and maybe multiple winning strategies? Maybe you need a different strategy for different cities, different DAs. Maybe we need to, the strategy needs to be, we need to start immediately recruiting the right candidates to go up against these people. And maybe even acknowledging that sometimes the right candidate might even be a Democrat, just not a Soros Democrat. In a deep blue city where a Republican cannot win, maybe the right strategy is just to get a sensible crime-fighting district attorney. They do exist in the Democrat Party. There are still some Democrats, believe it or not, who believe in the rule of law. I mean, look at what's happening with Eric Adams. And I know the entire Eric Adams situation is very polarizing right now, even within the conservative movement. Some are like, he's willing to fight illegal aliens. He went against the Biden regime. He's wanting to clean up New York. Yeah, okay. But, I mean, there's also a lot of bad. People say, but he used to be a Republican. I'm like, yeah, but not really. I mean, he was to the left of most quote-unquote New York Republicans, which they're to the left of like Oklahoma Democrats or Oklahoma Republicans. Yeah. No, Oklahoma Democrats, right. Sorry. You get the idea. So how do we fight that? And again, I don't know. Maybe that needs to be a project that somebody can lead, trying to figure out what is the right strategy or series of strategies to be able to address this scourge, because that's really what it is, of Soros-backed DAs destroying cities, destroying entire states. I mean, they have power, not just over the people, but they have power over politicians, over other elected officials, as Ken Paxton pointed out. So what can we do? And I don't have the answer to that particular question. Yeah, let's take a short break. My gosh. I'm supposed to do these ads. I'm supposed to run my sponsors every 20 minutes, and every time I do these shows, it ends up being about 30, 40, 50 minutes between breaks. It is what it is. I just talk a lot, I guess. So let's take a short break, a half break, we'll say. Whether you've been a prepper for a long time, or maybe you're just getting started, you're just looking around and thinking how crazy it is. We usually cover the basics. You get your food, you get your water, you get your ammunition. Don't forget your ammo. You get your battery chargers, solar battery chargers, or whatever. But a lot of times I think people will forget their meds. Okay, whether it's chronic meds, antibiotics, I think a lot of people don't even realize that you can stock up on that stuff. They go to the doctor, they go to the pharmacy, and the pharmacist said, oh, here's your 2-month supply or whatever. Well, you can actually stock up on a lot of these meds by going to jdrucker.com/meds. You'll talk to the good folks over at Jace Medical. They can get you a 12-month supply of certain prescription drugs. They can get you emergency meds, all sorts of good stuff, things that you may or may not need, but it's always good to have it on hand, because I guarantee you, even if you don't think you need it today, you might need it in the future. jdrucker.com/meds. Today, the big news earlier, and I'm glad that it did come early. Big news is we now have a new secretary of HHS, and that secretary is the man that I think was made for the job today. Do I think that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is the ideal person to run HHS at all times, or in different times in American history? Absolutely not. But he is definitely the right person today, because we have let not just our healthcare system, but also, the pharmaceutical industry, the agricultural industry, big food. We've gone so far away from focusing on actual health initiatives. And it used to be, there was a time, well, I think we were really turning the corner, so to speak, around the 90s, when we started seeing a big surge in healthier foods, right? But that has been subverted greatly since then. And I don't know who's to blame. I think that, well, it doesn't matter. We're not looking to blame here. We're looking to fix. And with this, the launching of the Secretary Kennedy X account. I love it. I think he's only posted one. Yeah, he only has the one post so far. Picture of him and President Trump smiling there. Yeah, it's good stuff. But yeah, I think that this is one of the most important. I don't even know how to stack rank it at this point, because depending upon the day, depending upon the event, I could say that, oh yeah, no, Doge and Elon Musk, that was the most important appointment by President Trump, because we got to get rid of waste. And then it's like, wait a second, well, what about Tom Homan and Kristi Noem? What about the border invasion? I've said long before the election, I was saying that the border invasion is the most direct existential threat that we face. So maybe Tom Homan and, to some extent, Kristi Noem were the most important. But then it's like, well, actually, but the FBI, they have so much control, so much power. Having Kash Patel in there, that's super important, because we really, we need to get this information out there. We need to reform the FBI and actually turn it into, turn the Federal Bureau of Investigations into a bureau that does investigations, and not just into, Catholics at school board meetings or grandmas walking through the Capitol building. Let's get them focused on actual, I don't know, crimes. And then let's also get the Epstein list out there. Let's get the Diddy tapes out there. Let's get everything that they know, everything that is held by the director of the FBI. In this case, hopefully, Lord willing, it will be Kash Patel. let's get everything, all that power and secrets that he has or that he will have. Let's get that out to the people. Not all of it. I'm not a fan of declassify everything. But I think most things that are classified aren't classified for the sake of national security. They're classified for the sake of saving embarrassment for somebody in office, or somebody who was in office, or some bureaucrats, or some whoever. So yeah, maybe that's the most important. I mean, getting the FBI back on track. Maybe it was never on track. One could argue that it's never actually been on track. And this is coming from a guy that when I was a teen, I actually really wanted to become an FBI agent. I had a career path all laid out, going through college, military, then into law enforcement and the FBI. I was going to be FBI director by 43. Okay. Praise God that didn't happen, because I would have had to learn the hard lesson of, oh my gosh, the FBI is not nearly what I thought it was going to actually be. So thank the Lord for that course correction. But then again, you could say that our military, our national defense, especially in a time such as now, getting the military properly back to the point of being warfighters, that's hugely important. So having Pete Hegseth in there, that's a big deal. But then it's like, well, what about making America healthy? I mean, we've had 60 years of constant deterioration of our health here in the United States of America, So maybe Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I feel like it's that scene from Princess Bride. So, clearly I can't pick the cup in front of you because, whatever. I mean, they're all important. They really are. I mean, David Sachs, cryptocurrency, artificial intelligence. One could argue that's going to be the most important aspect for our future. Understanding and properly controlling artificial intelligence. I am, for those who maybe you're new to the show, and if you are new to the show, be sure to subscribe, be sure to like. These are all things that help us out dramatically, greatly, incredibly. I need more likes. It's embarrassing. I'll admit. I get more people that will sit there and type me an email. They'll go to jdrucker.com/talk, or they'll go to x.com/jdrucker, where I have open DMs. I will have more people after every show write me a note. Take the time to write me a note. Then I'll have people that are willing to push the thumbs up button. They'll write me a note saying that they love the show, and yet I know that not all of them hit the thumbs up button, because I'll get more comments, more replies, more messages than likes on these shows, whether it's Twitter or X. I'm not worried about YouTube. Nothing against the people that watch on YouTube. My gripe is with YouTube itself for obvious reasons. But Getter, we do okay, right? My Getter audience, they're fast with the thumbs up and likes and all that stuff, whatever. Rumble, I just don't get a whole lot. I see people that get about the same views and get like 30 times more likes. I'm like, what are they doing? Maybe it's just because they asked for it. So I'm going to ask. Now, if you're new to the show, or even if you're not, go ahead and subscribe wherever you're watching, and then push the thumbs up button, because it helps with the algorithms, which we're going to talk about algorithms here in a minute. Speak of the devil. That would have been a perfect segue into the algorithm discussion. But no, I don't want to go down that road. So I was actually going to make a point, and I got sidetracked. For those who don't know, I am going through what's called the ketogenic diet, and I am doing it for health reasons, for weight loss reasons, but I'm also doing it for mental reasons. I've learned over the last, I don't know, however long it's been, that ketones affect the brain in a way that makes it, I don't want to say it makes you smarter, but I think it kind of does. At least for me, it does. Days when I'm not in ketosis, as they say, are days that I'm just don't feel as sharp. I'm getting older, and so brain health is nearly as important as physical health. It's not quite all there, I'd rather be a little bit slower in the head than dying physically if I had to pick between the two. But why pick? Why not just be healthy and brain healthy? So I'm big on the ketogenic diet. The unfortunate part is that it does, I think in many ways, it takes my brain, and probably anybody's brain who's on it, takes us in a direction. And then, rabbit holes are very, very easy to go down. So real quick, back to Kennedy. I want to play this little, and I've said a lot of great things about Nicole Shanahan, whose ideology I've never agreed with, to be clear. At least, there's certain things she espouses that I agree with, but for the most part, she's a radical leftist that's sort of leaning libertarian in a way, which is, it is what it is. She's an ally for sure. Okay, she's all about making America healthy again, and I think that she really is about making America great again. She doesn't speak out necessarily about the topics where she disagrees with President Trump. So for that, classy move. I greatly appreciate her. But with that said, I think her best talent so far has been demonstrated in the way that she and her, I'm sure it's not her team has been able to put together pretty darn awesome inspirational videos. Now, unfortunately, the one that she made to celebrate the confirmation of her former running mate, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the video that she put together is not her best, but even her not quite best is better than 95% of what other people are putting out there. So yeah, take a gander at this one.
We are told today that our nation is hopelessly divided. But I found something different as I travel this country. I have witnessed an upwelling of optimism that I've never seen before. Something is stirring in us. Let's go take back our country.
RFK Jr. is just about ready to make headlines with his running mate choice.
I'm so proud to introduce to you my fellow lawyer, a brilliant scientist, technologist, a fierce warrior mom, Nicole Shanahan.
This campaign is so much more than politics. This campaign is about what is sacred, health and our families in this beautiful land that deserves much greater attention and care than we've given it.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s favorability is skyrocketing.
Bobby Kennedy just got up and said, America leads the world in chronic illness.
This is a real issue that we all face, and we're all being poisoned, and they're profiting off of it. But when someone like RFK Jr. comes along and says, hey, I think we can fix this, it's like, give him a chance.
This is a spiritual journey for me. For 19 years, I prayed every morning that God would put me in a position to end this calamity. The most unifying theme for all Americans is that we all love our children. If we all unite around that issue now, we can finally give them the protection, the health, and the future that they deserve.
Some have called this an unlikely partnership. Former President Trump and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. have formed an alliance.
Former President Trump says he'll work with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to make America healthy again.
Tonight, I'm very pleased to welcome Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Don't you want healthy children? And don't you want a president that's going to make America healthy again?
The MAGA unity movement is very, very strong in the United States right now. Arguably, it is the largest movement in the world.
MAGA should be entirely bipartisan. This is people wanting to make America healthy again.
The most powerful new force in American politics is these moms of the Make America Healthy Again.
This is a transcendent, powerful movement, and it crosses party lines.
I'm a mother to a child with special needs, and I will dedicate the rest of my life to fighting on behalf of children and their right to be healthy and their right to thrive.
If you are a well person, you have the American dream at your feet. But if you're sick, you only have one dream, and that's to get better. And I can promise you that we are going to make America healthy again.
Like I said, it's not our best video, but it's pretty darn good one. So let's get into some of these stories. I've gone, nearly an hour. That's the opening, for those who didn't know. I've always said I need to do probably a 3 or 4 hour show, but we limit it to an hour just because that's the right way to go. So what do we got here? Here we go. During his meeting with Modi, President Trump announces a new energy deal with India and extradition of a Mumbai bomber. This comes to us from Just the News. I think this was sent to me this wasn't sent to me. By Misty Saveri over there. President Trump on Thursday announced in a press briefing with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi that India and the United States have agreed to a new energy deal, and that the U.S. will extradite one of the 2008 Mumbai bombers back to India. Trump and Modi met at the White House for their first official meeting on Thursday, which comes after Modi met with Vice President JD Vance in Paris, France, on Tuesday. The president said the pair have agreed to strengthen the friendship between India and the U.S. economically by creating a compact that includes a stronger security relationship and a deal on energy. Now, I need to stress that this is extraordinarily important. We'll get to it. Starting this year, we'll be increasing military sales to India by many billions of dollars. We're also giving the way to ultimately provide India with the F-35 stealth fighters. Prime Minister and I also reached an important agreement on energy that will restore the United States as a leading supplier of oil and gas to India. It will be, hopefully, their number one supplier. Now, this is a huge deal because India, for those who don't know, they're the third leg of the growing monster of BRICS. Okay, you got Russia and China, and everybody talks about Russia and China, but India is huge. India is a sleeping giant. India is the nation that we really need to be more aligned with, I think, not just with trade and not just with defense, but also we need to have an alliance, a stronger alliance with India. Because if and when, and I think it's inevitable, especially if in the more distant future, within the next decade or so, if they do align more closely with the other BRICS nations, then they will become an enemy of the United States, and it's better to try to cut that off now. So moving to friendly relationships, and more importantly, moving to reliance. It's, you can be friends all day. Okay, Trump and Putin can be friends all day, but Putin will still act against the best interests of the United States if they contradict the best interests of Russia. So getting India to be more reliant on the United States, we've always used for decades, we've had this thing where other nations rely on us because of our money. Well, that's changing, and India is part of the alliance, part of the BRICS nations that are actively and aggressively trying to subvert the U.S. dollar. They want to their currency, their coming currency, a central bank digital currency, possibly backed by gold, by the way. They want it to usurp the U.S. dollar as the world reserve currency. And they're already having great progress. India is involved in that. We need to strengthen the bond, and more importantly, we need to make sure that everybody's been dependent on us because of our currency and because of our buying power. That's changing. There's no way to truly stop it. We can slow it down, but we can't rely on it. We need to diversify our control. And to be clear, I'm very much a non-interventionist. I'm not big on getting involved in anybody else's conflicts. getting involved in sending a bunch of aid anywhere. Okay? I'm not that guy. I don't want to be sending aid everywhere. I don't want to be sending troops anywhere that we don't need to. And I'm definitely not big on the quote-unquote global economy, but it does exist. And we can't stick our heads in the sand and ignore it. So establishing these relationships that will benefit the United States, as long as they benefit the United States, truly benefit. I'm not talking about like CIA's definition of how it benefits the United States or how it serves the national interest. I'm not interested in USAID's definition of that. Or even the Democrats, or I say Democrats, really it's the uniparty swamp, because the neocons within the Republican Party, they too have a perverse version of what they believe is in the national interest. That's why they try to put troops everywhere, and they try to get involved in every war possible. They are beholden to the military-industrial complex, and as a result, they promote conflict. They want the Ukraine war to go on indefinitely. They want Israel and Iran to go to war yesterday. Okay, they want all of these conflicts happening because it behooves them. It behooves their personal bottom line. But it does not behoove us as Americans to get involved, but it does behoove us to try to prevent any wars or to try to stop current wars, which is why I wholeheartedly support President Trump's efforts to stop the Ukrainian war. Even though you got people like John Bolton saying, oh, he's bowing to Russia. Okay, John Bolton has never seen a conflict that he didn't absolutely adore. He loves them. Lindsey Graham loves them. John McCain loved them. This isn't just a Democrat thing. And the funny part is, don't forget, the Democrats used to be all about, oh, we want peace, we want peace. They don't want peace anymore. They want war. They have become the proxies for the neocons in that regard. It's sort of an exchange, I guess you could say. You know, you guys help us promote war, we'll keep the conservative fiscal policies off your back, or whatever. We'll get the government, or we'll get Republicans to embrace DEI. I don't know what deals they make, but they make some deals that have pushed us in this direction. It's like, yeah, we'll introduce you to our buddies over in the military-industrial complex. They'll really, really fill up your coffers. So, I am very happy that we are making these moves, including, look, I'm not a fan of our best technology, military technology, going anywhere, even if it's, I definitely don't want to give it away, but even if it's sold, I want it to be at least a notch or two or three below what we can do. You don't want to give anybody, even if they're an ally, you don't want to give them the best stuff. F-35 is right up there close to the top, but it's not the top. It's not the top dog. So I'd rather it be F-18s, but if it's got to be F-35, so be it. Anyway, yeah, and especially because there is, even though the China and India are part of BRICS, there's always a potential for military conflict with China, and there's always a potential for military conflict with that region. People don't understand that entire region. It's not just the Middle East. It stretches into all the way from the Middle East over into East Asia, where they have this potential for conflict between so many multiple nations. Pakistan and India, China and India. These are things that could possibly erupt in the future. So I'm not opposed to the F-35s. With most nations, I would be, by the way. I'm not crazy about Saudi Arabia having F-35s, that's for sure. But as far as getting them on, getting oil and gas from us instead of from others, that's awesome. So beautiful, beautiful moves by President Trump in that regard. So let's talk real quick. Might not be that quick, but let's talk about what we're facing when it comes to all of these attacks against President Trump's agenda, the attacks that are coming from the left. I've already noted, and I'll reiterate now, that a good chunk of this is about self-preservation. They're not truly opposed to general transparency of government. They're opposed to the transparency that could expose them. they're opposed to anything that could slow or possibly even stop their various gravy trains from running. They have scams, cons. They're involved in some very ugly stuff. It's not just USAID. It's not just the IRS. It's not just all the various shady groups within the United States bureaucracy that they're involved with. It goes deeper than that and far darker than that. And for decades, for as long as any living politician or bureaucrat, for as long as they've been in D.C., it's always run a certain way. I don't care. They could have been in for a decade, even under Ronald Reagan. You know, there's some that have been around since Nixon, believe it or not. All of them have watched Washington, D.C. operate in a certain fashion. Things change, politics change, Republican, Democrat, whatever. But the core of D.C. has not changed. It's been corrupt for as long as everybody who's there currently, for as long as they can remember, it's been corrupt. And that's just the system. That's it. I mean, it's like, oh, this sucks for some of them, but they still operate within it or just on the edge of it. People like Thomas Massey, people like Ron Johnson, people like Andy Biggs or Rand Paul. They see what's happening. They're not oblivious to the corruption in D.C. They just realize that they can attack it incrementally. If they go after it hardcore, they're gone. I don't care how popular they are. They'll find a way. They being the powers that be. They being the uniparty swamp. They even the people that aren't completely compromised by the system are still in many ways beholden to the system. And then comes President Trump and Elon Musk and Doge. And now all of a sudden, all bets are off. Now all of a sudden, they knew that he was going to come in and change things, but they already experienced 4 years with him, they being, the Democrats and the uniparty swamp. They thought, okay, well, stinks that he won, but he's not gonna change things. Oh my gosh, he's tearing it all down. He's burning the corrupt structures that we put in place that have been in place for longer than we've been in office. Oh my gosh, what do we do? And so they started lashing out. And they're continuing to lash out because that's all they can do. Other than the lawfare, which is a separate situation. But even then, they do realize that at the end of the day, all they're doing is delaying the inevitable. When most of these judgments, these orders to stop doing this, stop doing that, when they reach the Supreme Court, I'm very confident that each one of them, maybe 100% of them, will be properly ruled upon. I think that John Roberts is a question mark on all of it. Obviously, you've got the three radical leftists that are going to side with the Democrats, side with the administrative state, the nanny state, the corrupt state. They're going to side with them. But the other five, I do believe, even the three lukewarm milquetoast conservatives, they're going to side with the rule of law. They're going to side with not the status quo. They're going to side with the change represented by President Trump, Elon Musk, and pretty much everybody in the administration. I've been pleased not just by the actions of Doge, but also the willingness to collaborate with. It's not even cooperate with. They're collaborating with him. I mean, Pete Hegseth, he's like, yeah, look, I've already seen enough corruption myself. I've seen what's happening in the military. I know that there is waste. There's duplication. There's a lot of things that can be done far better. And he was very hopeful that Doge can come in there and try to fix some of that stuff. Now, keep in mind, that is huge because the Pentagon, the military in general, they don't want outsiders coming in and trying to fix them. They don't. And for Pete Hegseth to come out there and say, I'm going to invite Doge in, they're going to look around, they're going to give us some recommendations on how we can make things better. That is huge because the Pentagon does not play well, generally speaking. They do not play well with any other agencies. They want their own little, completely autonomous group, and they feel entitled to that. And in many ways they are, to be clear. The military does fall outside of the scope of most other agencies. But in this case, I think DOJ will rightly try to get everything in there corrected. All that's the setup, because we're going to go through some belly aching and lying and screaming and doing whatever they can to try to oppose what's happening. We'll start with one of my, I would say, top 5 least liked senators. Top 7, we'll say. He's in he's amongst the top 7 senators that I like the least. His name is Ron Wyden, and wow, he's a dork. That's what he is. But anyway, article from Brett T over Twitchy. Senator Ron Wyden says Musk's Doge henchman reportedly at the IRS delaying your tax refund. Delaying your tax refund. That's what they're doing. Doge is going in there to keep you from getting paid, citizens. It's a lie. It's a bald-faced lie. Doge is not going to do anything of the sort, but that doesn't stop Senator Wyden from gaslighting and lying about it. We're getting word that Doge has moved into the IRS on Thursday to complete their audit. This should be good. The agency that gets to audit you over a $600 Venmo payment is getting audited itself, according to Nick Sortor, independent journalist. Doge officials have just entered the IRS building in D.C. to begin their investigation into the agency. This comes after X users overwhelmingly voted for Doge to dig into the IRS just days ago. Like we didn't know that would be the results of that vote. We, the people, are in charge of our government again. Hunter Eagleman says, amen, and can't wait to see what they find. Nick Sortor replied, guaranteeing you a lot of people are going to be prosecuted over this one. The IRS is one of the most corrupt agencies in the country. Favors for Democrat allies, frivolous audits for Republican foes, and that's true. I mean, the IRS has been weaponized against Republicans and against conservatives since Obama, but really before Obama. We just didn't know about it until Obama took it to the next level. Clown World says this is great. Lane Violator Dietz says, I look forward to Democrat defending the IRS. And there it is. All of a sudden, you got Ron Wyden out there. He isn't happy about Musk's henchmen digging through a trove of data about every taxpayer in America, as he calls it. Let's start right there. Is Doge going to go in and start looking at the trove of data, looking at individual taxpayers? No. That's stupid. Ron Wyden knows it's stupid. Ron Wyden hopes that you are stupid. And unfortunately, he's right, not about you. He thinks you're stupid and he's right. No, not you personally. Not me. But he does know that a whole bunch of people who listen to him, not that there's a lot that do, but the ones that do listen to him are going to sit there and think, well, I guess Doge is looking at my IRS records. They got my social security number. They're probably going to get involved in some sort of identity theft. I shouldn't use that accent, but I did. Wyden went on. Oh, sorry. What does he think that the unelected bureaucrats at the IRS do? They literally do what he's claiming Doge is going to do. Wyden went with a strategy that because of Doge, your tax return might be delayed. Uh-oh. So in other words, if you don't get your tax return on time, if it's delayed, which it very rarely is, but if it is, then that's Doge's fault because they're looking at records, and therefore the IRS is suddenly incapable of handling anybody actually looking to see what they're doing and how they're doing it. And if they do that, then that's somehow going to slow you from getting your tax returns, your tax refund. It's idiotic. But again, it's not because he's stupid. It's because he thinks that the people listening to him are stupid. And sometimes he's right. We don't see why, but Democrats always like to use money as a scare tactic. I wonder why. Here's the actual post. My office is hearing that Doge is now at the IRS. That means Musk's henchmen are in a position to dig through a trove of data about every taxpayer in America. This is my scary voice. And if your refund is delayed, that could very well be the reason. He's definitely hoping and praying that he's not praying. He's hoping that a lot of people are going to actually listen to him. And maybe they will. Who knows? But Democrats, the Uniparty swamp, are trying to throw out everything possible. Fear-mongering about DOGE, fear-mongering about what they're going to do, access they're going to have, people they're going to kill. And I'm not kidding. They're actually going to try to get people to believe that DOGE is responsible for killing people. Oh, wait, they already did. They already did try to go down that road. According to an article over at Hot Air by David Strom, did USAID funding freeze really kill a Thai woman? I'm not going to read this article. It's a long article, but I am going to cut to the one part where I'll summarize it. So apparently in Myanmar, there's at a displacement camp in neighboring Thailand. Okay, there was a medical facility that was shut down. It was shut down as a result of the funding freeze, allegedly shut down because of the funding freeze by USAID. And as a result, one woman died because she couldn't get her oxygen. It's a sad story. But is it true? Well, let's look at the facts. Did the woman die? Yes. There was a woman, I think she was 71, if I recall. 71-year-old woman died. That is true. Did she die from lack of oxygen? Absolutely. Did she die because the hospital or the medical facility where she was going to was shut down? Probably. I won't say definitively, but probably. I'm not there. But I can say that it appears that is the case. Did that medical facility shut down because of USAID funding freeze? No, it did not. It's not why it shut down. As a matter of fact, according to the article, that they buried this part. The agency that was responsible for keeping this hospital open, the agency may be subject to an exemption as it offers life-saving assistance. It wasn't just a blanket shutoff, by the way, with USAID, with foreign aid in general, not just USAID, but with foreign aid. It wasn't a blanket shutoff. That's what's been reported, of course. But no, there were exemptions. There was no cutting off aid to things that can be demonstrably attributed to saving lives. In other words, you can't shut down a clinic that you opened in wherever, in Myanmar. Can't stop the funding for that, because there are people that have life-saving needs, or life-saving. You get the idea. Saying it wrong, but you know what I'm saying. You know the thing, as Joe Biden would say. Can't shut down a hospital. So that aid continues. There are exemptions. But more importantly, the organization behind this clinic that's shut down, they're not poor. This isn't like, oh my gosh, these are like missionaries with, they're sitting there eating rice and that's it, and they live in huts. No, this is a very, very, very wealthy organization with literally hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank that shut down this medical facility, not because they couldn't afford it, but because they were trying to protest the end of foreign aid, or at least the hold. It's not an end, don't forget it. Okay? It's a temporary suspension of foreign aid by the Trump administration that did not include hospitals. But because of that temporary hold, this organization decided, we're going to shut down this hospital. We're going to make the news. And it did. Of course, Western legacy media echoed the talking point that, oh my gosh, this is the first time that, what do they say? They said, here it is. They said, and this comes to us from Telegraph. Telegraph says a 71-year-old woman has died after her oxygen supply was cut off when the United States announced a freeze on aid funding. A freeze on aid funding. Refugee from Myanmar living in a displacement camp in neighboring Thailand died 4 days after she was discharged from a USAID USAID funded healthcare facility operated by International Rescue Committee. She died 4 days after they cut funding. The funding, of course, wasn't very much, not compared to the hundreds of millions of dollars that International Rescue Committee has in the bank. They didn't have to shut it down. They did it. They killed this woman to match a Democrat talking point. Seriously. They let this woman die to prove a point. So don't tell me that it's just, Ron Wyden is just out there telling lies about how you're not going to get your tax return. No, they will go to the extreme. The globalist elite cabal, uniparty swamp, anybody who's personally at risk of losing something for themselves because of Doge, because of President Trump, because of the exposure of the corruption in Washington, D.C. today, those people who are at risk, they're the ones that we need to worry about. We don't need to worry about whether or not USAID funding is going to cause the deaths of anyone. We have to worry about the people who want USAID to continue to fund them, who make decisions such as this International Rescue Committee, which made the decision to allow a 71-year-old woman to die so that they could preserve their own personal interests. That should really make you upset. There was a time not too long ago. We're not talking about, you have to go, you got to go all the way back to Kennedy when Democrats were talking about stopping waste. No. The Clinton administration did. And here's a shocker for you. Barack Obama used to talk about cutting waste. I know, it's crazy. It's crazy to think that. But there was a time. There was a time when he did, or at least they used to pretend to talk about it, or pretend to want to do it. They were lying. They didn't really want to cut waste. But it was a popular talking point, and it makes for funny fodder for us today.
This report tells us how to cut waste, cut red tape, streamline the bureaucracy, change procurement rules, change the personnel rules, and create a government that works better and costs less.
I've read it, and where it says the president should, the president will.
Among the 800 recommendations, eliminating 12% of the federal workforce, merging some government agencies like the FBI, the DEA, and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, closing hundreds of government offices outside Washington.
From the day I took office, one of the commitments that I made to the American people was that we would do a better job here in Washington in rooting out wasteful spending. We thought that it was entirely appropriate for our governments and our agencies to try to root out waste, large and small, in a systematic way. It means cutting some programs that I think are worthy, but we may not be able to afford right now. A lot of the action is in Congress and legislative, but in the meantime, we don't need to wait for Congress in order to do something about wasteful spending that's out there. We haven't seen as much action out of Congress as we'd like, and that's why we launched on our own initiative the campaign to cut waste. And we're going to keep on finding every possible way that we can do that, even if Congress is not acting. There you go.
Did they really want to cut waste? No, of course not. They wanted to pretend. They wanted the smoke screen, even though I do like the idea of consolidating the FBI, the DEA, various agencies, bring it all together, and then reduce it in size, then take control of it and make sure that it's actually enforcing the law as a law enforcement agency should probably do. Sabbath 1974 in the chat says, Demon Rats. I love that. Launder money through foreign aid, which is why Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, and John Kerry all had kids sitting on Ukrainian natural gas company boards, even though none of them had any prior experience. Don't even get me started on the corruption of Ukraine. Ukraine, the reason that they are so, it's not just the biolabs. That is an important reason, but that's not the only reason. Arguably the bigger reason is because Ukraine is they're the if you ever watch Breaking Bad, they're like the what's his name? Saul Goodman. Okay? They know how to launder money better than anybody. I mean, you need money laundered, lots of money laundered. You don't need to go to the mafia. You just go to Ukraine. They can take any amount of money, put it into a black hole, and when it comes out of the black hole, after their cut is taken out, now all of a sudden it can be distributed anywhere. To be clear, the Ukraine war, the war on Ukraine, has been an absolute boon for the uniparty swamp, for the globalist elite cabal, for the cartels, for the Chinese Communist Party. Anybody who is working against the best interests of the United States, such as the Democrats, they benefit from the Ukraine war. It's not just the military-industrial complex. And it's not just the Ukraine war, though that's obviously the big one of the big ones. But when you look at the aid and how it's distributed, I was replying to Laura Logan, who we're actually going to get on the show here very soon, working on getting that finalized. But I was replying to her as she had posted, hey, here's this particular African nation, a picture of the African nation before the USAID came in to fix this. And then $2.4 billion later, it's the identical picture. Nothing has changed. What happens? Well, as I replied, money, they being the powers that be, they find whatever the deepest, darkest, most shadowy, hard to get to hole that they can find, and they decide, hey, we're going to send aid to fix whatever, someplace in Zimbabwe. And they quote unquote send the money there, right? It's like, okay, we're fixing this. This money's going to go to this, and this. It never does. It gets, 10% to the big guy, and then, you got 1% that goes to this local official, another percent goes to this warlord. You got to pay off some members of Congress that are sitting on certain committees. Okay, great. So we got all that covered, and then where's the rest of it go? The rest of it gets filtered through to whatever cause the globalist elite cabal wants it to go to. Usually one of their members uses it for something. Some of it, I'm sure, goes into Act Blue, for example. Hey, we got lots of money. We got lots of people that we can use as straw donors. Hey, look, here's a grandma. She's not going to notice if we donate 3,700 times over the next 3 years. We got plenty of money. We got through that program that was supposed to build a school in Zimbabwe, but nobody's going to go check on that. Like there's not going to be any oversight. Nobody's going to ask any questions. We're just going to pretend to send the money there. It's never going to actually make it there. Probably filter it through Ukraine, spit it out the other end, and start dishing it out to the appropriate people who could possibly tell on us. And since none of them will tell on us because they want their money, it'll never get noticed. They didn't see Doge coming. They didn't know that President Trump was going to be a different and more focused president this time around. They weren't expecting any of it. And now that it's here, they're terrified. I mean, they are absolutely, positively just, they're gone. They're beside themselves. They don't know what to do. They're losing it. They are losing it. Let's see. Sabbath 1974 in the chat says, domestically, the Democrats launder massive amounts of taxpayer money through Planned Parenthood, right? their illegal organ trafficking, evil pedophile child sexual exploitation cover-up, and the Luciferian child sacrifices, such as Epstein Island, which, to be clear, I've never said this, I don't think, before. I've been trying to get a guest who he's very secretive. I shouldn't even have said it was a he. I've already given away more information than I was supposed to. But he's very secretive. But he's told me, and he's I wouldn't say famous, not even close to famous, but he has a decent following. But he's told me privately that he has seen evidence that Epstein is one of 100. That there are versions of Epstein out there. They just don't own islands. Instead, they own mansions, like perhaps in the Pacific Palisades. Just saying. They bring people along. He said it's actually really much closer to the Stanley Kubrick version of things in the movie Eyes Wide Shut, which is a conspiracy all on its own. It's one I haven't talked about much, but there's a lot of questions there, okay? A lot of questions about Eyes Wide Shut. There's 21 minutes, just briefly, 21 minutes of footage that Stanley Kubrick absolutely positively wanted to stay in there. And the producers, the studio, said, no, we can't. And they said, yes, we can. We're keeping it in there. I have, read my contract. I have the authority to declare what stays in and what gets cut. And so they screened it. They saw what they wanted to cut. They told him to cut it. He said he wouldn't cut it. 4 days later, he had a heart attack and died. It's never really been, even most conspiracy theorists haven't really touched that one. He was older. I mean, it's, heart attack. And but that's a story that I'll dive deeper into it someday in the future. Anyway, point is that I talked to somebody who I'm trying to get on the show, even if I can get them a nice voice changer thingy. But they say that they have seen evidence that there is this whole conspiracy that Epstein was just the most public version of it, right? But there's versions of Epstein Island across the country, across the globe. And these Epstein Islands are very similar to like Diddy parties. People come there, and sometimes it's a big party, like like an Eyes Wide Shut. Sometimes it's just one-on-one, just hey, just go to this address, Senator. It's very hush hush. It's a nice neighborhood. Nobody will see you. No cameras there. And then all of a sudden, hey, Senator, by the way, there was a camera in that room that you were in with that child. We got you. We own you. Very upsetting. Let's take a break. Hopefully I'll get in a better mood.
I'm Jonathan Rose, CEO of Genesis Gold Group. As Americans, we work hard every day to provide for our families and ensure their future. But with the uncertainty facing our economy, it is more important than ever to safeguard your wealth and protect your retirement savings. Educated investors look to safe haven assets to shield themselves from the economic storm. Tangible assets like gold and silver can provide stability, security, and most importantly, peace of mind. In 1997, the Taxpayer Relief Act allowed Americans to hold physical precious metals like gold and silver in their IRAs for the first time. Today, Genesis Gold Group helps our clients transfer existing IRAs, 401ks, and other retirement accounts into physical gold and silver, tax and penalty free. With thousands of satisfied clients, 5-star reviews, and fully accredited with the Better Business Bureau, our experienced team is here to help you navigate the process. start to finish. Now is the time to educate yourself on the importance of a diversified portfolio, including tangible assets like gold and silver. Call now to receive our free wealth protection kit and digital dollar defense guide. Call now and we'll include our extremely popular silver prepper bar free when you open your account. Add it to your IRA or have it sent to your home. Call Genesis Gold Group today at 800-200-GOLD. Prepper bar only available through Genesis Gold Group.
That's a good segue. Let's talk about tariffs. Gold prices are skyrocketing, by the way, to be clear. And it's not just gold, okay? I know I just played the ad, but I just want to say real quick that there are options. And I think people need to start looking at their options, especially with tariffs. I mean, tariffs are going to have an impact on the economy. And I would imagine that tariffs, not just tariffs, but all of the economic indicators out there right now, they're going to have an impact on gold price. They're going to have an impact on crypto. They're going to have an impact on the stock market, all that stuff. So people can and should look into alternatives like Genesis Gold Group. Just go to rumblegold.com. They can help you. Or if you're more interested in crypto, go to jdrcrypto.com. That's an option. You can now put it in your IRA. In other words, you don't have to just go out and spend a lot of money on cash on crypto. You can get into Bitcoin, Ethereum, all that stuff, and use it to back your retirement accounts. Do a tax-free rollover or transfer, and you can go to JDR Crypto for that. We just picked up a new sponsor who can help, I guess, just from an informative perspective. He seems to know, well, everything. His name's Jim Rickards. If you're familiar with him, awesome. If you're not familiar with him, get familiar with him. And you can go check him out by going to jdrucker.com/crisis, jdrucker.com/crisis. Sabbath 1974 says Ukraine is a grift, not a war. Zelensky puts kids with Down syndrome in uniform on his front lines. We did see that video, it was last year. On his front lines, while Putin puts inmates from jail or prison on his to keep up the charade as the billions of dollars keep flowing. And Truth Pursuit says anyone who profited from the Ukraine war should be worried. Genesis 4:10. Yes, absolutely. Thousands of young Ukrainian men died for the greed of those profiteers. God hears their cries. I don't even want to talk about tariffs now. You guys got me all upset about all these various grifts, but let's talk about tariffs. We've got like 20 minutes. Let's talk a little bit about tariffs. Gosh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I got 11 more stories to do. My gosh, I really do need to consider doing a 3-hour show, don't I? Yes, I do. Well, let's talk about tariffs real quick. This comes to us from the Epoch Times, a premium report from the Epoch Times by Andrew Moran. 5 takeaways from Trump's sweeping reciprocal tariffs plan. And I'm not going to go through the entire article because it's a long one. But let's go over each individual point. I think I could talk intelligently about that. Countries that are affected the most, reciprocal tariffs are more likely to affect emerging market economies, Brazil, India, Vietnam, and several Southeast Asian and African nations, as many of these countries currently maintain wider tariff gaps. You know, I understand the need for these nations to impose broader tariffs on the United States, even if they don't want those tariffs returned. They think that it's sort of like, we're poor. You guys, it doesn't hurt you. It's as much as it hurts us the other way around. I could sort of understand that, but I don't care. Okay, I'm sorry. I know it's very callous of me to say, but fair is fair. Fair is fair. If a rich man came to me and loaned me $10, I'm not going to go to him a week later when I'm supposed to pay the $10 and say, hey, you're rich. You don't need the $10. I could really use the $10, so I'm not going to pay you back. I'm going to pay him back. So That's why, and for those, just in case anybody, I don't think any of you out there need the explanation, but just in case, I don't want to leave you hanging. Technically yesterday, if you're on the East Coast, yesterday, President Trump announced that he was going to be doing these reciprocal tariffs. In other words, he's just going to return the favor. Oh, so here's a country that is imposing 15% tariffs on us. Okay, well, we're going to impose 15% tariffs on them. It's very straightforward. And again, it's fair. Then it's not about just leveling the playing field. That sounds very socialistic, very leftist. It's about, if you're going to charge us, we're going to charge you. That's it. And then if you want to, you think that's unfair, okay, we'll do better at exporting to us. Or do better with your economy. Do better with importing from us. Or just, you cut your tariffs, we'll cut our tariffs. It's reciprocal. It's fair. World Bank data from 2022 indicates, for example, that India's weighted average effective tariff rate on the United States was about 9.5%. The average U.S. tariff rate on India's products entering the country is about 3%. That's not fair. So, and yes, there will be emerging economies that are affected more than, say, China's or Russia's or France's, right? I'm sorry. I get it. It sucks for some of you. I don't care. America first is America first. Next, BRICS is dead. It's not, but wishful thinking might work. Trump warned that BRICS nations may face 100% tariffs. Boom. Over the past few years, BRICS, a group of emerging markets led by Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, has championed anti-U.S. dollar initiatives, including settling bilateral trade in local currencies. On February 13th, Trump declared that BRICS is dead. The president has repeatedly vowed to tariff countries if they engage in de-dollarization efforts, which BRICS is leading the way, as I noted earlier, in de-dollarization efforts. And shortly after the November 2024 election, he threatened to impose tariffs on BRICS nations that tried to replace the U.S. dollar as the world reserve currency. He told reporters that BRICS was established for a bad purpose, but that now the members refrain from discussing the anti-dollar bloc. They're hiding it. They're quiet about it. They don't want to feel the wrath of Trump. Seriously. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. He says they're afraid to talk about it because I told them if they want to play games with the dollar, then they're going to be hit with 100% tariff. We have them over a barrel. However, and this is not a quote from Trump, but it's separate back to the article. However, some observers said that they believe that Trump's tariff strategy may push other nations to diversify from the dollar. And that is true as well. Okay? Tariffs are not a clean strategy. They're really not. Because it's a strategy. You're basically imposing a tax on them. And even if it's reciprocal, they still don't care. They're still going to be, people view the world, or people of the world view the United States as entitled. They think that we have it all. And so that we should be spreading the wealth because they've been infected with Marxist ideologies across the globe. It's not just in communist nations. It's across the globe. And so-called democracies are embracing these Marxist ideas. And they view the United States as the enemy that they need to pick apart little by little, bit by bit. And Trump's not going to have it. Praise God for that. Number 3, Trump singles out EU's VAT. It's a value-added tax. European Union's value-added tax, which is a consumption tax applied to each stage of the production and distribution process on all domestic and imported goods and services purchased and sold in the block trade block. A VAT differs from a sales tax because the latter is charged at the point of sale. With the EU's average standard VAT rate of 21.8%, the White House stated that tariff rates on U.S. exports entering the region are nearly triple that. Lutnick called it an export subsidy because the EU will drop the VAT when it sells to the United States. So we're going to address each country one by one. But here's the key. They'll get an invitation to trade with the greatest consumer economy in the world. in exchange for trading with the greatest consumer economy in the world, you have to treat us the way we're going to treat you. In other words, reciprocal. Again, I don't see a downside. There are downsides. I just don't see them. It's not that I don't see them. I can ignore them because the upsides are far greater. You're talking to somebody, or you're listening to somebody right now who, for the better part of my adult life, I was a free trade absolutist. I did not believe in any tariffs at all. The only reason I did is because I saw, and I was against them even after President Trump was in office the first time. His first term, in the very beginning of his first term, I was vehemently opposed to the tariffs that he was imposing until I started seeing the results. Then I started realizing, wait a second. This worked. Why did it work? I've been listening to economists my whole life telling me that it wouldn't work, and it's working. Why? And then I realized there's certain things that work for certain people. Certain people can use certain gifts in ways that other people simply cannot. And I would argue that, the quote-unquote art of the deal, that's a real thing, and he really is the best at it. And as a result, you could have had other presidents, even other Republican presidents, who had tried to impose the exact same types of tariffs that President Trump did in his first term, that he's doing now in his second term, and they would not have had as good of results. It works for him because they work for him. It works for him because this is ideal for his personality, his style. Imagine if Jeb Bush tried to impose tariffs. He would get bullied out of the room. He would end up reversing tariffs and asking other countries to charge us more in tariffs. Just as, just be a nice guy. Products that are affected the most, let's see, scan through ethanol, pharmaceuticals, chips. We'll see. That one, by the way, the reason I'm scanning through this instead of actually reading it is because it's not the products that necessarily get affected. It's the response to the consumers. Like, you can't look at it as the tariffs are going to be highest on this one, so that is the one that's going to be most effective. No, you got to look at a lot of things. In many cases, tariffs can be absorbed into profit margins for the companies. In other words, it won't affect the consumers very much at all. It will affect the companies, of course. But as long as they're able to maintain low prices enough to keep sales up, all it's going to do is reduce their profits, not necessarily harm the company, make it, we got to cut staff or anything like that. And in those scenarios, it's not going to harm the consumer either. So, anyway, prices will, and they address it in the next one. Whatever. Prices will stay the same or go down. That's a quote. And this is a quote from, A course of economists has stated that the president's tariff plan could reignite price pressures. Trump said he disagrees, telling reporters that his levies have little effect on inflation. Prices could go up somewhat short-term, but prices will also go down. So Americans should prepare for some short-term pain. Ultimately, prices will stay the same or go down. And he should say prices relative to inflation, because it's really what, no, I don't want to go into that. No. Stop it. I want to get to these other stories. I hate to say it. The only reason I even did that story, and don't get mad at me, but it was because I had put it in the title of this particular. I thought I was going to talk a lot more about tariffs, and I chickened out because it's an important topic. It's a topic that I know a whole bunch about. It's a topic I'm comfortable discussing, but it's so boring. It really is. Bottom line, let me just cut straight to it. These tariffs are going to have an impact on the economy. Some of those impacts will be good, some of them will be bad, but the overall impact will be positive for the United States. Moreover, this attempt to try to generate revenue through tariffs that could at some point either reduce, insane to think about it, but could possibly even eliminate income tax, it's worth a shot. And it's only worth a shot with President Trump. Anybody else hopped in, Let's say Trump didn't do tariffs. Let's say JD Vance is president in 2028 and he's talking about tariffs. I would be very trepidatious. I would be adamantly opposed to it. Because this is one of those things where you got to give it a shot, because we won't have another opportunity for a long time probably to take another shot at it. Is it potential? Could it backfire a bit? Yeah, it's possible. I'm not going to tell you, oh, it's definitely going to absolutely positively work. No, there could be, there's a risk of it backfiring here. But I think that risk is low. I think the upside is high. And I think that for arguably the only window of opportunity in most of our lifetimes, we could actually see, in an ideal world, there's the great switcheroo. We go back and we're able to we're taxing other nations and taxing ourselves, but not taxing ourselves based upon income, taxing ourselves based upon consumption. In other words, yes, we're going to pay higher prices for items, but because we're not paying taxes, or we're paying greatly reduced taxes, it works out better for us, better for the consumer. Is it likely? No. Is it impossible? No. Is it a long shot? Yeah, probably. But it's our only chance in our lifetimes, I think, to see if it could happen. It's worth a shot. And even if it wasn't, let's say it was 0% chance that could happen, I would still be in favor of this, because I think that, as I said earlier, the upside greatly outweighs the downside. Oh, let's see. Oh, goodness. The next story is a long one. All right. You're going to see whether or not I can speed read. This is an important one, though. And it's a great way to end today's show. It's from Michael Snyder, one of my favorite writers out there. A little bit, what's the word for it? He can be a little fear-mongering-ish every now and then, but one of the reasons that I want to talk about his stuff is because I want to take his really good ideas and his fantastic research, because he's great at research, and present it to y'all in a way that is hopefully more discerning, more lucid. I don't know. Maybe I do a horrible job at it. I don't think I do. This is over at endoftheamericandream.com. 8 conspiracy theories that the mainstream media has been forced to admit are actually true. According to the article, the mainstream media is in the habit of labeling something a conspiracy theory whenever they are attempting to discredit a particular point of view. Of course, such conspiracy theories have been proven to actually be true time after time. Meanwhile, the mainstream media has been caught in lie after lie in recent years. As a result, trust in the media is the lowest that it has ever been in the entire history of our country. At this point, most people realize that our largest media outlets are going to push the agenda of the globalists that own them, and they are going to be extremely hesitant to expose the big pharmaceutical companies and other giant corporations that spend billions of dollars to advertise on their networks. The good news is that we have entered a period of time when truth is coming out about so many things, thanks in large part to you all helping me. Be sure to like and subscribe, by the way. The American people are now demanding transparency and accountability from major institutions throughout our society, and that is a wonderful thing. It is especially gratifying to see the mainstream media publicly admit mistakes that they have made. The following are 8 conspiracy theories. Sorry, I didn't do the voice. The following are 8 conspiracy theories that the mainstream media has been forced to admit are actually true. Number 1, the lab leak theory. This is not a small one. And it's funny, of all the quote-unquote conspiracy theories out there, this is the one that should have been crystal clear from the very beginning. That was a tough sell, and yet so many people bought into it. And that shows the past, we'll say circa 2021, 2022, the past influence of legacy media. And I would argue that it's one of the reasons that COVID in general, anything associated with COVID, but lab leak theory in particular, it's one of the reasons that so many people have just been like, you know what, I'm done. I'd rather watch Joe Rogan or Tucker Carlson or JD Rucker. I don't want to listen to Jake Tapper or Brett Baer anymore. And rightly so. Because everybody in legacy media was saying that it was bat soup. They were saying that, okay, so you got it right here, you've got the Wuhan Virology Lab, okay? And then you got over here, you've got this wet market where they sell bat soup. And here's where the first person contracted COVID. Now, are we going to blame that on the lab working on coronaviruses? Or are we going to blame it on the bat soup? And then you had Jake Tapper and Brett Baer and all those people saying, oh, obviously it had to have been the bat soup because that's what Anthony Fauci said. Anthony Fauci said it's the bat soup. Haven't you heard? Anthony Fauci said it definitely couldn't have possibly come from the lab. It's got to be the bat soup. Because Anthony Fauci is never wrong. I don't know where that voice was. Don't ask. I'm embarrassed that I used whatever voice that was. I've never used that voice in my life. I just made it up. Live. Doing it live. Number 2, MK Ultra. I hope I don't have to explain that one. I'm not going to explain that one. I did learn, by the way, I think we all, hopefully everybody in my audience knows about Project Paperclip, but the thing with MK Ultra, I didn't know this until today. I did learn something brand new, and I'm going to say, you know what? Let's do like an entire segment. Not tomorrow. I got plans for tomorrow. Let's do an entire segment next week on MK Ultra, because I think there's things that even if you've done your research, there are probably things that you don't know. And if you haven't done your research, maybe you just heard that MK Ultra was CIA's ultra secret experimentation on mind control, utilizing people that oftentimes didn't even realize that they were part of it. That included like Whitey Bulger. Yeah. So let's talk about MK Ultra later. But yes, it is true. Acknowledged true. Yay. Let's see what else we got. Number 3, fluoride in our drinking water is bad. Oh, you remember when they were saying, oh, fluoride couldn't be bad? Well, that means follow the science. That's what they like to tell us, right? Trust the science. Well, the science is now saying that fluoride in your water is bad. If you drink tap water still, I would strongly recommend not. Easiest way to put it. I know that water can get expensive, but there's got to be a way, even if you have to go drive down and fill it up yourself. Okay. And make sure, don't just trust, oh, here's a place that sells water. There's that big scam. It's been probably 20 years, but there was this big scandal. I think it was in Cincinnati, if my memory serves me, from 2 decades ago. But they found this, one of those places in the parking lots where it's like a standalone thing and it served water. You go there, and they came to find out that somebody did an investigation, and they came to find out that the company had stopped filling the water tanks and had just connected to the tap anyway. And the reason it was found out was because they started getting a water bill, and somebody started noticing, wait a second, why are they getting a water bill? Somebody at the water company there. So they alerted the press. Press went and checked. Sure enough. So anyway, point is make sure that if you are getting water from anywhere, that it's actually good water. And not just tap water, because that's obviously what you're hoping to avoid. Number 4. If I can skip it. Number 4, there are cancer-causing chemicals in our drinking water. I already mentioned that. And yes, they are literally making the frogs gay. Literally making the frogs gay. RFK Jr. confirmed that one, by the way. Amongst other people. We've been confirming it for a while. And by the way, if you want to support Alex Jones, you can go to jdrucker.com/Infowars. jdrucker.com/Infowars. Strongly recommend going there so that you can help keep Alex Jones and Infowars alive and on the air. Number 5, the dumbing down of America. For a lot of years, many of us in the alternative media have been talking about the dumbing down of America, but the mainstream media has continued to defend our system of education. Unfortunately, it has become exceedingly clear that our kids are not all right. They are not all right. The following comes from the Wall Street Journal. The reading skills of American students are deteriorating further, according to new national test scores that show no improvement in a years-long slide. The 67% of 8th graders who scored at a basic or better reading level in 2024 was the lowest share since testing began in 1992. Results from a closely watched federal exam show only 60% of 4th graders hit that benchmark, nearing record lows. The declines started before the pandemic, continued during it, and have persisted since. They are dumbing us down. And I don't know if it's the water. I don't know if it's 5G. If you missed the beginning of the show, we talked about this. Not necessarily just dumbing down, but making people more malleable, more easily controlled, more docile in many ways. And also, dumber. Number 6, prescription drugs kill large numbers of Americans every single year. No need to expand on that. You already know that. So that's yeah. Aspartame is not good for our health. You remember that? You remember that when they were pushing? Many of us have been warning about aspartame for ages, but the mainstream media just kept defending it. Well, after reviewing the evidence, the International Agency for Research on Cancer was forced to classify aspartame as a possible carcinogenic to humans. Go figure. I will be posting this article over at discernreport.com after the show. Or you can, if you want to go check it out now, you just go to endoftheamericandream.com. That is Michael Snyder's personal site. Sabbath 1974 makes a good point. Nothing, quote unquote, leaks from a level 4 bioweapons lab. Far too many firewalls. Bulk. Maybe I caught something from the bioweapons lab. They got me. They found me. Something in the air. Firewalls, bulkheads, and protocols to prevent such timing of release. Outcome event 201. Prove, I think CCP Chinese, it's the coronavirus was deliberate and intentional. Yeah. I mean, zero doubt there. Sometimes, and I have, this is my biggest weakness as a show host. Sometimes I skip over things, assuming that everybody is on the same page. I'm proven very wrong by that often. Yeah, I didn't get to cover a story, and I'm very, very annoyed by that because I actually wrote the article about it. But it does fall into the same category of, things that seem crazy, except that they're not. One of such things, something that Elon Musk had posted about. Mario Knopfel posted about it first, okay? And then Elon Musk picked up on it. And it was a discovery through USAWatchdog.org? I forget. But basically, they found a payment or a program that was commissioned by DARPA through Reuters. They were paying Reuters to fight misinformation and social engineering as it related to COVID. Okay. Sounds about right. Sounds like something they would do. Fighting misinformation and social engineering related to COVID-19. DARPA was paying Reuters for this. The problem that apparently nobody noticed until today, and we got to break the story over at discernreport.com, the problem is that the program was commissioned in 2018. Now, I'm not very good at math, but I'm pretty sure that COVID, which started making the news in late 2019, I'm pretty sure that 2019 comes after 2018. So why was DARPA commissioning Reuters to fight COVID misinformation in 2018. Check out that story over at discernreport.com. Lord willing, I will be back very soon with another episode. But in the meantime, y'all stay strong, stay safe, and God bless.